Greetings, you've landed at the VUC, IP Communications and VoIP Community. We would like to thank Simwood.com for their support. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is from onsip.com. You can go to getonsip.com for a URL people can click to call you. We've been privileged over the last 5 years to be using the best conference bridge on the planet. Yes, I'm talking about zipdx.com, full color, full featured, full HD conference bridge. Our website, vuc.me on the webs, hosted by bluehost.com. And our worldwide local rate dial-ins are from voxphone.com. All right, folks, this has been quite a day, but we've got a great, and I'm hearing a little bit of echo here, we have a terrific panel with us today. This is a fun day, more fun than I might have wanted even at the beginning, because we had to switch from Jitsi to Hangouts due to some audio and video routing issues. You can see that this is VUC 524 with Stefan Alund. We're going to be talking WebRTC and OpenWebRTC and a little bit about Bowser and a little bit about the iOS exciting news. I'm hoping, Stefan, that you will confirm that the OpenWebRTC.io is the best place to find out the information. Would you?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That's a starting point.
Okay, so we want to make sure of that because that's something that I'll be repeating from time to time. We've got some of the usuals with us. We also have Matthew Hodgson from Matrix.org. Welcome again, Matthew.
Hi, Randy. Lovely to be here.
And, of course, Michael Graves is kind of running things, and he's got a very official-looking headset on. And, Robert, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hello.
No. I don't even know your last name. I don't have it in front of me. So
it's Swain.
Okay, and you are?
I don't know, maybe Stefan would describe me as the lead developer of OpenWebRTC.
There you go. Okay.
Sounds fair.
And Stefan, we know we have put the message out that you are with, and I guess Robert too, Ericsson Research. But the main thing is, first question is usually how people got into the technology in the first place. And if you don't mind, this is a personal question, but what brought you to tech and what brought you to the technologies that you're interested in right now, the ones we're using right now?
Wow.
That's a tough one, huh?
I don't know how far back I should go.
As far as you want. You can go back to when you were 10 if
All right.
Technology.
All right.
I've always been interested in WebRTC. No, well, I guess I got interested in, I think there was some random physics lesson, physics class where we had some kind of radio measurement thingy lab, and then I went over with my newly bought mobile phone and put that by the test unit, and it got crazy. And then I was interested. Oh, this is pretty cool. This radio technology is pretty cool. So then I decided that yeah, I probably want to study to work with this in the future. So that go. I started this at something called Royal Institute of Technology, which is one of the premier schools in Sweden for doing well, technology and civil engineering. Right after then, I basically started looking at signal processing and working with that at the end of my study period. I started at Ericsson Research, or did my master thesis at Ericsson Research at the multimedia technology unit, doing actually stereo extensions to the AMR wideband codec. So I did audio VoIP, basically the low-level core audio processing. Then after a while, I was working at Ericsson, did various things, and in the end took over a unit. One of the units working on real-time communication and communication technology, where I am today now. And then I've been from there on working with these kind of things, real-time communication, for the last couple of years, together with some amazing people.
Okay, and I was talking to Emil Ivav author of Jitsi, or not author, but the guy at Jitsi, team head, whatever you want to call him. And we were talking yesterday about OpenWebRTC, and I was telling him, WebRTC has a lot of components I don't understand. He explained something to me, but I'm going to let you explain it, which is why there is OpenWebRTC, why we would care even.
Right.
That there is, starting with the fact that Google has an implementation of WebRTC, right? We're talking on it right now, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
So what is the point of open? I mean, it's open, of course, but how did that get started, and why does it matter, is what the question is, really.
If you allow me to go back a little bit to that,
Sure.
Ericsson Research started working in this area, it was like in 2010 already. I mean, Ericsson is a company that has been working with communication for. I mean, basically, we built most of the company on the premise of connecting people, and that's Nokia. But anyway, so I mean, it's the backbone, the DNA of the company is communication, and then basically there was a movement around the communication and adding real-time communication into the browser. Like in 2010, discussions appearing on mail lists. So then I led the small team of hackers, basically researchers, that had the crazy idea of basically hacking WebKit on Ubuntu and on Linux to add the real-time communication into a browser, basically, as an open question. How would you do that? And this was before the WebRTC sort of standardization, or even the WebRTC name was coined. So we started hacking with that, and then from our sort of closed world, we did something that was very strange as well. We decided that early on that we should basically blog about what we were doing and sort of trying to tell people about it. This was quite new for us in research and in Ericsson in general. So that got kind of interesting, because we got a lot of sort of interesting feedback, people wanting to try it out themselves and wanted the code, etc. So we eventually published our browser, our modified Epiphany browser to the world, and that was actually, I think, somewhere around a year before Chrome had the first WebRTC support in their browser. So we've been at this as quite a long time, actually, and then during that, after a while, the standardization started, and then we have been quite involved in that. But our way to work in this area has always been to do that via implementations, and to don't do any sort of just paperwork. We rather try stuff out in code and see what works and what doesn't work, and that helps us to sort of feed that knowledge back into the WebRTC standardization and better understand the technology.
Okay, and we could probably repeat at this point that for people joining us now, that the site to go take a look at what we're going to be talking about, a lot of it anyway, is OpenWebRTC.io, right?
Right, that's correct.
Always correct me if I say URL, because it's terrible. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Where would you? No, it's me. I just want to make sure I'm getting the right URL. So listen to it. They type the right one. Okay.
So then I mean, how we get started with OpenWebRTC is basically that, I mean, while working on this or starting up, we sort of quickly understood that WebRTC will be a technology that will not just be confined to browsers, and that sort of mobile applications specifically will continue to be an important part, and you won't run everything in a browser all the time. So therefore, we started building a framework internally with the purpose of sort of being able to build WebRTC clients for any type of platform, iOS, Android, I mean, any type of devices. And then we run that, and we did it, and we have done a number of different internal trials and build different prototypes on top of this, and it has matured over the years. And then eventually we decided it was time to release it as open source. And the reason for doing that is basically that, I mean, all of you know that Google has been having Google has this WebRTC.org implementation of this of the WebRTC standard, but so everyone up until this point has been using primarily Google's implementation of the WebRTC standard, and to some extent, this creates a little bit of a confusion around what is the actual standard and what is the implementation. I mean, since there has only been one implementation, everyone is referring it to as Google's WebRTC, basically, which is true to some extent because they named the project the same as the standards name or the standard that's being defined in the W3C. So I mean, in the end, it's not a very good thing to only have one implementation of a standard, and in fact, W3C and ITF sort of requires that there are independent interoperable implementations of the same standard before it gets fully rectified as a standard. So we thought it was the community and sort of the standardization was lacking an alternative implementation, and so we decided, yeah, let's open source our implementation to provide that second implementation of the same standard.
How different is your implementation, though? In fact, I mean, and what is the difference? You start from scratch? I don't think so, probably.
No, we did not. Absolutely not start from scratch. Our implementation is very much. I mean, it doesn't really share any code with the Google implementation. And we decided our implementation is built on top of something called GStreamer, which is another fantastic open source project, actually. And Robert can talk a little bit more about that later if you want to. He's from that community and has been working with it for quite some time. GStreamer is an open source multimedia framework that has been used to build a lot of things. And it's a mature project that's been around for, correct me now if I'm wrong, Robert, but something like 15 years or something like that. So yeah, it's a stable platform and it has a vibrant developer community around it. So it's we couldn't be. I mean, I think that's what we usually say. That's the sort of the secret sauce behind the OpenWebRTC, is that it's built on top of this GStreamer framework, because we get a lot of the you know, the really hard parts, like the low level, the real-time communication parts. We get that basically for free from GStreamer, which is allows us to put even more focus on sort of implementing the WebRTC specific things on top.
Okay, I'm working the controls here because people are unmuting and making noises and stuff, and that's stealing the focus. And this is WebRTC, which means real time. And real time means that suddenly a screen flashes up. Matthew, anything to contribute? You look like a likely candidate.
It's just unfair. I saw that James was trying to heckle by video during Stefan's exposition there. It looked as if you were running Bowser or some app, although James is now shaking his head in denial. Do I have to guess what you're doing, James? I'm not sure whether the icon's going to be coming up on the page.
Oh, yes. Sorry, your browser is incompatible. Let me put that. Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
So what was that?
Yeah, I'm wondering which app that is and which browser that is, James.
I don't really see anything.
Yeah, well,
that's actually True.co. It's one of our WebRTC apps.
Those of you in the Hangout, you will have to click.
So yeah, as I was saying, click on
the film strip. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the issue I've had with Bowser is actually finding anything else that will actually interwork with it.
All right.
Tricky.
Yeah. I mean, there's always some smaller modifications that are needed by the developers most of the time. I mean, most people have been targeting Chrome and Firefox, and there are always smaller JavaScript differences between the different browsers that makes it, well, it doesn't work.
So yeah, I'm sure we could get Bowser to work in some shape or form with our apps, but it just just a bit of an effort. And I can't do it sitting in the car.
You should probably not try it even, I think. At least not if you're driving.
I like living on the edge, living dangerously, you know me.
Right.
He is. Many people have already heard me say this to Stefan and Robert, but you know, the cry is always, WebRTC is great, and no extensions to download. Yeah, you have to download Chrome, basically. Well, depending on what you're using, maybe Firefox. The point being that there are people on the planet who don't use either one. So a lot of us are waiting for the day when somehow it just works with whatever you're using.
Yeah, and I think on mobile it's even more problematic, I guess, because people are absolutely not used to downloading a separate browser. So
then why would you?
I mean,
in all fairness, why would you want to? I mean, you think of the average person. They're not downloading anything. They have their phone and it's got a browser and that's it. That's good enough for them.
Sure. I mean, browser is not really intended to be, competing against mobile Safari or Chrome even on iOS. I mean, it's more or less a sort of a proof of concept where we should help developers get started quickly and sort of provide something on iOS for people who are, for developers to try out. I think that's what we are keen on driving is not browser really. We think the more interesting things are in the framework OpenWebRTC, and browser is very much just a thin layer on top actually that just shows a little bit how you can interact with our APIs basically.
And since you're mentioning that, mentioning iOS, we know that there's things to say about how developers are going to be able to take advantage of H.264, and people talk about FaceTime. Frankly, I'm not a fan of FaceTime. I've never used it, very rarely. I have a Mac. We're talking on one right now. We have iPhones in the house. I have literally never used it. I think James called me once by accident. He butt dialed me in FaceTime or something. But I never saw the point of it. But people do say that the quality is superior because of that. So I think what you were saying in an email to me or even on the community post is that there's a kind of an exciting development in that area. You want to get into that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the thing is that there's two fundamental things. Either you do video coding in software or you do it in hardware. If you do it in hardware, then you have dedicated chips on the phone that actually does that is dedicated to do the video coding, and that typically gives you a lot more. It gives you a lot more computing power and the focus computing power to do a lot better video compression at sort of a given time. So that's a sort of a key feature then, and then the reason why Apple's FaceTime has been, or is typically better than third-party devices, is specifically that difference that Apple have access to these hardware-accelerated API or hardware-accelerated codecs that are in the platform, whereas third-party developers needs to basically do voice and video in software. And even if modern smartphones are pretty capable devices, high quality video is actually still super tough on the CPU. So there has been basically something called Video Toolbox, an API on OS X that has been sort of making that this video coding accessible to developers. And as of iOS 8, Apple actually released that. On some devices, the newer devices, that API is now public. So after jumping through a few hoops and getting that to work, and with some excellent support by the GStreamer community, we can now do H.264 video with that Video Toolbox API in every app that runs on top of OpenWebRTC now. So that allows us to do the same kind of video quality, and it's not only video quality that you gain, but you also save a lot of battery, because hammering the CPU on a mobile device doing like 720p video is killing the battery quite fast. So that I guess everyone is aware of. So that's quite exciting news, and the cool thing about this is that you can you can pretty much do it and still be interoperable with WebRTC browsers that implement H.264 then. So we recently showed, we were in Paris where we actually met Matthew for the first time, and we were showing browser with real-time with H.264 video towards standard Firefox browser then, which since they implement the H.264. And you can see that the video quality is quite a lot improved, and it's lower latency and a lot of improvements. So.
What would you say about Apple's motivation in suddenly making things a little bit easier? I assume that's to try to get some wave of apps that are doing exciting, sexy things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really. I'm not one of those who believe that Apple is sort of preventing third-party developers from getting access to better APIs for their own purposes, stuff like that. I generally think that they try to make as much as possible available in a sense. I mean, providing these kind of powerful APIs is definitely something that third-party developers will sort of jump on and make even better applications on their platform, which I guess is more important to them, I think, than sticking to keeping them by themselves. So.
Right. I have the impression they don't make it that easy. Of course, Google's not doing too bad a job of pissing people off in their app store too. So, yeah, it's not easy. I'm kind of being smart here, snarky. It's not actually easy to run an app store because if you let everything go by, it gets ridiculous on a number of levels. Forget about the politically correct or the indecent, so on. But even just technically, as you mentioned, things like battery. One assumes that in both cases the platform gatekeepers do have a job of trying to make things so that you don't completely use the battery up in 5 minutes and so on. Skype notably I think it's got one of the worst reputations. I guess they've kind of corrected that recently, but they were horrible. Matthew, you were going to jump in, I believe.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, actually. One of which was whether Bowser has actually got the H.264 hardware acceleration in there yet, or has it yet hit the App Stores?
We actually submitted it, I think, 2 days ago. So,
okay, so
it's on its way, I hope.
To do that thing.
Yeah.
That would be very, very cool. And also, in terms of what James was implying from his dangerous drive through the countryside, that the compatibility is an issue. I'm actually here with Dave, who did a cameo earlier, who's the guy on the Matrix team who's been hacking on OpenWebRTC, adding in WebRTC or OpenWebRTC support to the Matrix codebase. And I guess you did most of the work for that back in November?
Yeah, about then.
When was OpenWebRTC released?
Beginning of October.
Okay, so we were a couple of weeks off the start of that. But, I mean, I guess you can say firsthand how painful or otherwise it was back in November to go and do the initial work needed. And I know that we had some problems with the JavaScript loading semantics. Was that an Angular thing?
Yeah, one of the interesting things was that because the implementation in Safari is injected using a script, you don't always have the WebRTC objects in the DOM from the start when you load the page, which you would with Chrome because it's built into the browser. So our app certainly was assuming that they would be there and therefore was not detecting it correctly. But yeah, there's just those kind of things. It's basically very, very easy.
Yeah, wasn't it?
It's basically a hack, that the whole thing. I mean, what you're talking about is something that we haven't said here now. That's that similarly as we can add WebRTC to the standard web view in iOS, we can also inject WebRTC support into Safari on Mac. Basically having a daemon running in the background and injecting a little bit of JavaScript into every page load that sort of communicates with this WebRTC daemon. So that's just to clarify what you were saying.
But in terms of the amount of work involved, it was what, a couple of hours, or possibly a bit more to fiddle around or learn the differences and get it up and running, and things have moved on a lot since then? Or is that an understatement?
Well, I think at the time it was probably a couple of afternoons, something like that. But yeah, hopefully I know it's got a lot better actually, because I was giving feedback to the guys through bug reports. of places where it didn't work. So hopefully it's got a lot better. Yes.
So the reason I also grabbed Dave in here is because we might have some interesting news on the integration side here, in that I thought that we were blocked on some last issues to do with turn or something like that.
There is one outstanding turn bug that we're undetermined quite the behaviour that it's like with our turn server that we've got running on our Matrix instance. But I just did a test call from my desktop to my desktop, Firefox to Safari, and on Matrix our app, and it works.
So this is pretty cool. If the default Matrix web client is actually using OpenWebRTC and interoperating, it shows that TruePhone are clearly behind the curve, that TrueCo hasn't been updated to support Bowser, and it is possible, and it does work.
I hope James hears this then. He's laughing.
Yeah, you're just making trouble now, Matthew.
Almost in an affectionate way. I'm trying to actually get it up and running on the 6 Plus. It turns out, rather embarrassingly, the reason we haven't seen this working on the Matrix mobile web client on the 6 Plus is because of our CSS hiding the WebRTC UI on the adaptive CSS stuff. But I've just done a hotfix to matrix.org, so it's possible that if anybody is on Matrix, they might actually be able to use this to place a call. I guess we could try a properly dangerous demo and try to...
We can try it with me, because I've got the Matrix client here, if I run it up.
Okay, so on Bowser.
We now have your visa number as well, James.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that.
This can possibly go wrong.
So I'm just trying to think. I've got to sign into Matrix, though, haven't I?
Yeah.
From Bowser. Or from
should I sign into?
That's what we do, is that they might see if we can get it working locally and have a quick mess around and hand the microphone back to Stefan, rather than hijacking this with us likely by the Matrix. But we might be able to have something cool to play with, and possibly do a Sweden to England link up, and that'd be amazing. Clearly not related to what we're doing with Hangouts right now.
Maybe we can come back to that as well, Matthew, to talk a little bit about what you and I have been discussing, to do a native client as well for integrating in that. He's nodding with his microphone muted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess we have a problem on Matrix that whilst the web reference client has got WebRTC built in, both with the Google library and the OpenWebRTC support now. On mobile, we haven't historically had any VoIP at all. We've been focusing just on open federated instant messaging and chat rooms. And this is what Stefan and I were discussing actually in the WebRTC conference in Paris. And basically next up on our roadmap, and I guess it's going to be you working on this again, Dave, is going and adding, exciting.
That's a problem.
Yeah,
but
well, we all do at one time or another.
Yeah, well, what's going on with that one, James?
Well, it's probably good. Yeah, I was trying to connect to our Matrix server, which of course you haven't updated yet.
Oh, yeah, that would be it.
That would be it then, wouldn't it?
Sorry about that. But Matrix.org is updated and should be running now. But either way, yeah, the idea of adding OpenWebRTC as the default VoIP implementation on iOS on mobile is basically the plan of action. And we hope to be looking at that from both our side and I guess on the OpenWebRTC side in the next couple of weeks, where it could be very, very cool to have a completely open, fully functional Hangouts parity chat room implementation with the VoIP running off OpenWebRTC.
Absolutely.
Okay, would you? This is up to you now, Stefan. But if you want, Michael was saying he's got some slides ready. You don't have to do that, but they're there if you want to move to that. Up to you.
I think we've been discussing that, most of them, or I mean the contents of the slide has been we've been talking about most of it. Trying to remember what's in the slide, but well, I mean what is there is that I mean the open license. Anyone can take it and pretty much build whatever they want. There's a BSD2 license. We try to be as open as possible and try to be as active as possible now. And I mean our main ambition now is basically to to get developers interested in this. We are a fairly new project. We are very we know that most people have been using the Google implementation for quite a long while, and that is, rather stable implementation that is really useful. So we have we have a lot of work to do to convince people to use our implementation instead, or to try that out. I think we have some. Google has a lot of advantages. We have some advantages, especially on the mobile side, where our implementation has been basically built from the day one to incorporate or to run on every mobile platform. So it's sort of I think that's the key differentiator that we have great mobile support.
And actually, Michael is running through the slides, and I put him on the center of the recording so that actually, when people are watching this later, they're able to see the slides.
Yeah, I see.
Which, even if it's random, they do look good, and you can see what was in the content of that. So
cool.
There's nothing.
So it's showing the browser slide now, and then
right.
The browser is while we were developing this OpenWebRTC framework internally. We decided to release this browser because there was no, at the time, I think it was in mid of 2012, there were no mobile browsers with WebRTC support. So we wanted to make that available for developers to start try out, basically. So we released the browser as a downloadable application both on the iOS App Store and Google Play. For developers to try out, basically, and then from day one, people started asking, "Can't we get we want the code? Where's the code? Can we get that?" And at the time, we weren't really ready to release the code, but after a while, we eventually did that. We also released browser as open source, and we also decided to continue publishing. Browser on the App Store, so that it will be basically a community developed browser, but we from Ericsson is still sort of pushing it up to the App Store and making snapshots when there's new interesting features being added to OpenWebRTC, for example. Then we make new versions of browser available. But as I said in the beginning, I think browser is sort of probably a little bit more well known than OpenWebRTC because it's been around for a while. And it's a little bit easier to understand what it is, but from our point of view, browser is really much. It's just a gateway drug or something like that into starting to use OpenWebRTC. So it's really, we're not looking to compete with other mobile browsers, and that's not the point of it.
Tell us about the build of browser that you were running on Raspberry Pi. That's interesting.
Yeah, that was quite fun. We had a hackathon internally a couple of, like 2 months ago, something like that. And one of the guys in our team decided to try to get OpenWebRTC to run on the Raspberry Pi. And again, now we're sort of leaning on the GStreamer community, because GStreamer have had pretty great support for the Raspberry Pi for quite a long time. And then, so it wasn't actually, it wasn't actually that much work to get the OpenWebRTC to run as well, because the majority of the code is already running on GStreamer. So we got that to work, and then basically in Paris before Christmas, we were able to show this running on a small Raspberry Pi with live video feed. Towards a WebRTC capable browser, which is I'm not sure if it's the world's first, but at least it should be one of the first times that anyone has gotten WebRTC to run on a Raspberry Pi. So that's it's quite fun, and I think that the developer community was quite excited about that. There's a lot of developers who are really keen on that platform, because I think it was Rob who said that it's a small device that is powerful in the right places. I think that's a good description of the Raspberry Pi.
And it's cheap.
And it's super cheap, exactly. So that's quite cool that you can get real-time communication running on such a cheap hardware, and pretty great support at that.
Yeah, I think I might give that a whiz just for the sheer devilment of it.
Mm-hmm.
See whether I can get OpenWebRTC running on the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, send us an email then, and we'll provide you with the branch, because it's not officially supported yet in the project. We can hook you up.
James, you are actually coming in quite well for that last intervention. You still in the same?
Am I?
Yes. Beautiful.
Amazingly, well, I'm on EE 3G, having tried various BT open zone things and 3. So my last resort was EE, and that seems to be working a little bit better at the moment.
It's incredible. It's actually beautiful. Amazing.
So you're saying that the mobile network is functioning better than Wi-Fi networks?
Oh, you were on Wi-Fi before, not LTE?
Yeah, I was on Wi-Fi, and as you can see, I'm in the middle of Tisbury on the Dorset-Wiltshire border, waiting for my son to come. Look, you can see the fish and chip shop over there.
What a great! Haven't you been in there for the fish and chips yet?
No, because I'm listening to the interesting stuff here on the VUC, and it wouldn't be right to be sitting here eating fish and chips whilst you're discussing OpenWebRTC, would it?
Indeed. Indeed.
I think you're making Rob homesick now.
A little bit.
So we've been on the fish and chips. Dave and I have been trying to get this up and running between iPad Mini and 6 Plus. And the good news is that all of the WebRTC setup stuff and dependency injection, even on mobile, was all working wonderfully in browser. But I think we are hitting the turn bug, Stefan, that we discussed the other day still, even between two devices on the same network. So whilst it was working okay on Dave's local box going Firefox to browser, it seems that browser to browser is still having some issues there.
I'm sure we can sort it out. I think it was your specific the co-turn server that we hadn't tried with yet, and we know that this turnserver.org or the other typical the popular turn server open source that works.
Yeah, for sure. So no crazy dangerous demos today for our turn server, but it'll be great to play with it once that issue's fixed.
Well, while you're on that slide, I think I can say something interesting about that. Obviously, you see in the slide, those of you who see that there's an image of two devices. One is the Google Glass, which we had a pretty good thesis project where one guy got OpenWebRTC to run on a pair of Google Glass, and we had a pretty interesting use case where the person wearing the glass was a field engineer out in the field, and by sending the real-time video feed up to an expert sitting in some kind of call center, they could collaboratively sort of help each other to solve the problem of the field technician. So that's just one sort of an interesting use of this kind of technology when you can run it on different kind of devices, not just desktop.
Yeah, and very topical and timely with the announcement that Google are discontinuing Google Glass.
Are they?
So,
you know what? Yeah, that's right. I have to interrupt for a second because this is the first time this has ever happened. We seem to be plagued by problems today. One of my machines just froze, and it happens to be the one that's sending all the audio to ZipDX and to the VUC.audio. I can reboot that. We can continue the Hangout, and of course it's going to be recorded on YouTube, so it's not a huge problem except that people are not hearing anything. So if somebody could go over to ZipDX and tell them that we'll be rebooting and trying to get back on, that would be nice, Andy or whoever. And gentlemen, sorry to interrupt. I will have to be away for a moment to reboot this thing. This has never happened. We've done 524 of these, and this is the first time this is happened.
ZipDX is back up, Randy.
This is because of the massive pressure you're getting from people connecting.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people watching. We just went to 14 viewers, 15 now. But this is a Mac Mini from about 6 years ago that's doing that part of the work, so it's not that surprising. Anyway, I will be back, but everybody just keep running the way you are, and we're being recorded on YouTube anyway. I hope. James is going to take over? No. So, Stefan, continue, or...
Yeah, I can. That was interesting news about the Google Glass, but that's...
yeah, there's
I think something similar will be most likely be coming out. And I think
they claim
quite useful.
They claim that they're going to be having new stuff that's unimaginable coming out soon. But the 19th, the last day that you can go pay $1,500 for a prototype that will be discontinued immediately. So I'm not sure who's going to do that, but that's a lemming kind of thing to me.
Right.
And the interesting news is that also Tony Fadell from Nest and the iPod fame has been put in charge of the whole glass division. So it sounds like it's a fairly major reorganization, and who knows what decision, whose decision it was to put glass on hold for now. But it's certainly not backing away from the wearables market. It's just more merging it in or restructuring, I guess.
Yeah, can I dive in? I've got to go and be taxi cab driver now that the boy has arrived. So I'm going to drop out. If you're still going when I arrive home, I'd rejoin you. If not, catch you later.
Yeah, nice talking to you, James. So the other project, interesting project, where on the slide where we have how we have been using OpenWebRTC ourselves, it was a picture of a toy excavator. This was something that we showed at the Mobile World Congress, which is the big mobile fair in Barcelona every start of the year. So what we did there is that we had our team was tasked with coming up with interesting use cases for this 5G technology that we have started developing in the industry right now. And then what you will have in 5G is basically a super low latency and massive throughput. And so we thought that remote controlling of a vehicle could be something quite interesting to explore with that technology and to show what you can do with it. So what we did is we gutted a toy excavator, a digger, and put in a little small iPhone in the driver's seat there, and sending the video feed, a 360-degree video feed over to to a Mac application connected to a pair of Oculus Rift glasses, virtual reality glasses. So you could the idea was that you can and then basically get a feeling for sitting inside the digger and controlling it via a small remote controller. So that was quite an appreciated demo, and another way of using communication technology in a different manner.
Well, what sort of frame rate did you get out of the connection there, out of interest?
We were running at, I think, 25 frames per second or something like that.
I think it was 20 because we were using software encoding.
Okay.
And that was as much as the iPhone 5S could manage at the time.
Right. So I've never got a chance to play with this, which is very upsetting because it looks really cool. But did you have were you using the full head mount display so you could actually look around, or was it just showing the actual field of view? We found on Kickstarter a small project that did this 360 lens that you can mount on an iPhone 5S. So we were actually sending the video feed, a 360-degree video feed all the time over to the Oculus, and then we were using, basically taking that and wrapping it out, or mapping it to the sphere in the Oculus, so you could sit and look around and even look behind you at all times with zero lag. The full head mount support. So what resolution do you need then to get the full 360-degree 2 pi steradians or 4 pi steradians, whatever it is, solid angle of everything?
Probably you want to jump in and answer, I can.
So last year in Barcelona with the demo that Stefan's talking about with the iPhone, we could only encode up to, I think it was 1024 square.
Yeah.
And the quality wasn't so great, but it showed the idea.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get really good quality, then I think you need something like 16 megapixels. But the problem with, there's also a bit of a problem with these lenses, and getting a 360 degree view is a pretty hard problem to solve, because you either use multiple cameras and then you get problems with stitching the different views together, because some objects are closer to the camera than others, and when you overlap them, it doesn't really work so well. Or you get problems with this lens type thing that we used in the demo, where you have less resolution in the middle of this sort of donut shape.
Yeah. Yeah, you get a lot of. I mean, you're all, at any point you're just looking at like 30% of the video or something like that. So you're spending a lot of video pixels on sort of sending the full 360 image, and then you're just looking at just a small part of that and putting that up into the Oculus Rift.
Yeah, I guess
you can't really do it so that you have like a camera that turns when you're moving your head with the Oculus, because it would be too much latency between you moving your head and the video updating.
Yeah, although presumably you could do some kind of real-time negotiation on that, and this could be something that OpenWebRTC has a huge advantage over the Google, the GEPS code base, in terms of having a support for a back channel of an arbitrary RTCP stream or something that says at least what half of the image you're looking at. Because in practice, it takes me 100 milliseconds to turn my head through 180 degrees, less if I want to break my neck at the same time.
The latency requirement is super tough, because you get nauseous if there's just a little bit of lag in that turning of the video. If the image doesn't follow, you get nauseous directly. So you still will probably vomit before you have turned your head.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the feedback time on the Rift itself. But if you were negotiating with the broadcaster source, say which half of the field of view to show, am I looking forwards or am I looking backwards? Then you might have enough time to select the correct field of view, possibly, if you're physically close to the source and don't have very much jitter buffering.
But then if you look to the side, you need both.
Yeah, so I guess testing the sort of the field of view. It might be
hard anyway.
Optimization, heaven forbid.
Yeah.
But increasing the resolution of the camera helps a lot. But
yeah.
At some point,
in related news, there's been a company that does head tracking for this sort of thing with the Oculus Rift. It will actually rotate the acoustic field so that you get your oral perspective changing in sync with the visual perspective. And this was just demonstrated at CES a week or two ago. And it can be done. It can tie in nicely, because you can do it using an arbitrary number of audio channels over Opus. I think you can do it binaurally to start with, but
wow, that's very cool. So is that using a phased array of microphones, or is that a shotgun microphone on a motor which you're literally turreting around like the Digger here?
No, it's not so much a phased array. The stuff that I've seen tends to use or heard. Tends to use sound field type recordings, so they're a recording that's sort of usually it can be 2, but it's more typically 4 channels that are mathematically related. So they're usually a tetrahedral microphone involved, so 4 microphone capsules, and you can do some phase math betwixt the signals to derive any particular arbitrary direction. So you now have a 4-channel recording from which you can extract, after the fact, arbitrary directionality, and then convey that down a 2-channel path, which means from a production point of view, you can have a game and you can have the entire environment of the game recorded, but play back the activity of the player within the game, tracking their head movement with the Oculus Rift. So, and the WebRTC part is just sort of how you would link that back to the Oculus Rift.
That's very
I
good.
think Rob might have something interesting to show you.
We have a lampshade here with a bunch of microphones in it. Because we're working on similar things.
It looks like a kind of a hacked together version of the Nimbus ambisonic microphone from the 80s and 90s.
Mm.
You should look at it. You should look at a Core Sound Tetra mic. It would make it a little more portable. A tiny little microphone with 4 capsules on it.
Thanks for the tip.
And actually cheaper than buying all those microphones.
Yeah, probably they were not so cheap. Yeah, so those sort of things. I mean, obviously we have been doing like standard WebRTC stuff and video conferencing related use cases and stuff like that. But part of my team has been working on WebRTC, and then we have also done a lot of work on things like how will we actually use this technology and more practical things, and building different kind of applications and seeing how communication technology can be used for sort of new, integrated into different contexts and used in different environments. And that's sort of where these kind of prototypes come from. And having this digger example is also another interesting. I mean, it's a good way of pushing the limits of what you can do with this framework as well, because you have to have super low latency and very good quality video in order to get something useful out of it. So it's a good driver for the framework in general.
I was just thinking a bit more about the whole head tracking issue for the digger use case. Obviously, well, there's the dodgy optimization of looking at the front and back and negotiating which field of view you're meant to look at. But don't you also have a vomit problem, or a nausea problem, I should say, with the lateral head movement? Because when people are looking at things with an Oculus Rift on, they're constantly laterally moving their head left and right, back and forth. And obviously that's the big thing in the DK2 development kit, that you actually have, you have your nice infrared webcam that you mount on your PC, which looks at the infrared LEDs on the front of the head mount display, and so it detects where the laterality is, which is fine if you're looking at a virtual environment, because you can re-render the offsets of all of the geometry, so everything looks completely right. But surely you have a huge problem if you have a single locked down 360-degree camera, which you can't physically move to match the lateral head movements on the Oculus. So yeah, how do you fix that?
You fake it. You basically move within the sphere.
Okay.
But I mean, you're getting in the, maybe we shouldn't drill down too much in the digger example, but I mean
sorry.
I think we will have a reason to come back to that again, because we may have some interesting things to show around that in the near future. But trying to be vague now, but
Geez, MWC
anyway.
Coming up again. What time of year is it?
Wow, it's the beginning of the year. All right. Anyway. But you would want to, I mean, especially when you're digging something, it's crucial to sort of get a depth feeling, and then that you don't really get if you have a 360 degrees. So ideally, you would want to have like at least 3D video or something like that, or two separate video tracks representing different eyes to get sort of the depth. If you want to do this for real, but at the moment, this is still just a concept or prototype, basically.
So I guess something that we haven't spoken about, unless I missed it earlier, was the data channel support in OpenWebRTC, and sort of what other big things there are on the roadmap, and whether there are particular places you're going to be pushing and forging ahead past Google and their sort of Hangout-centric use cases.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to announce that we are. I mean, the data channel support will be landing pretty soon. I think it's a matter of weeks rather than months, or it is actually around. Our ambition is to have it out before the end of January, even. So it's getting there. It has been one of the, I would say, one of the most requested features in OpenWebRTC from the get-go, and it seems especially interesting for iOS developers. They are very loud and interested in this. So I guess people have a lot of cool ideas about how to use this peer-to-peer data communication between devices and stuff like that. I can only imagine. So that we're really happy to get that out soon. I was looking at the chat. Yeah. Other than that, I think our near-term focus will be on really providing a solid, great sort of native client SDK, or have it something like that. I mean, native example applications to show how to sort of integrate OpenWebRTC into your application, and that is, I think, crucial for us now, and getting that great support on both Android and iOS, and to be able to really use the full power of the platform. I mean, including things like the H.264 video, hardware accelerated video, and stuff like that will really shine on native implementations.
So should we expect to see OpenWebRTC stuff popping up in the mainstream Ericsson portfolio and sort of big iron Ericsson apps, or is this going to be more kept as a community-facing thought leadership exercise in Ericsson Research?
I mean, it started off as the latter. I mean, obviously, but I mean, Ericsson is not. We are not really. We are providing the sort of the core technologies, and we obviously have the open. People can build a WebRTC enabled client using our framework and connect to our WebRTC enabled backend, of course. But it's not something that we mandate that they use Ericsson technology all the way. It's not. I mean, that's the difference from other like proprietary client. Communication provider, which provide a client SDK and a proprietary sort of server backend, and ties people into their platform in that way. We have taken a different approach, where we basically say the only tie-in that you do is to the WebRTC standard, and as long as you adhere to the standard, then you can basically use Chrome browser and connect to our backend, or you can build a WebRTC client using our framework that connects to someone else's backend, basically that we think that's ultimately the best way for the ecosystem to grow, that there are different people can provide different parts of the full chain. And obviously now we have sort of a toolbox for building complete end-to-end solutions using pure Ericsson technology, but that is only one track out of many, I would say.
Of course. I guess another question I had was, if you're going and building a compatible alternative stack like this, obviously compatibility is a huge thing.
Absolutely.
And looking at the sort of full WebRTC stack, you've got to make sure that your bitrate negotiation is compatible with the algorithms that Gibbs are using, that all the Timber stuff and whatever other exotic extensions there are nowadays for doing both the error correction and the error concealment and the bitrate. All of that actually lines up. I mean, do you have a test suite for doing this? Are you doing it manually? Is it unit tested? But what sort of methodologies are you using?
I mean, we are. That's one of the things that we are lacking a little bit. I mean, in terms of testing, providing a good testing framework, and something we will be using, something we will be working on during this year. We haven't had time to get that out yet, but that's something we're working on. And as you said, interoperability is core. It's one of the key features. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we do this. But it's also an interesting thing also another interesting vehicle to flush out sort of any problems in the standard specifications. Because if we make our reference implementation and it doesn't, and Google or anyone else makes other assumptions based on reading the standards, etc., then there's obviously a problem in the standard, and that's that's sort of an opportunity for us to clarify the standard in order for it to sort of mature in the end. So interoperability is both something we have to have it, but I mean, it should not come at the expense of sort of diverging from the WebRTC standard. I think that's sort of our main track.
Cool. I mean, the reason I ask is that we haven't seen any interoperability problems at all from on the actual WebRTC, SRTP, and RTCP side of things. I mean, it's all been more just getting the JavaScript API mismatches sorted out and that sort of thing. And I guess that GStreamer has got a certain level of kudos for providing the media stack that's working there. But I'd say it's a better experience than getting Firefox and Chrome to work a while back, and they were using the same stack and the same media stack. So it's
but they were also. I mean, it's things are maturing, right? I mean, so it's becoming easier to be interoperable with Google's implementation and with Firefox as well. So as they are maturing as well. So.
Cool. I seem to have taken over the interviewing here. You're still alive out there, Randy. Michael.
Yep.
Fantastic. I did have another question too, but I've completely blanked on what it was, which was a shame. It was something to do with the interoperability side of things. I guess it goes back to the roadmap question as to whether there are particular areas where that you can announce where you're really focusing to do a better job than Google, because Google obviously have a very, very specific use case of making Hangouts as good as they can, and everything else seems to be a little bit peripheral to that. Obviously, they support the community and all, but they've got their products. I mean, is there a particular...
I would say, I mean, specifically, I mean, as you said, Google's code was the prime intent of it was in order for integrated into browsers. I mean, that's the sort of the main reason for releasing it. And the support for, as most of the code is written in C and C++, you can obviously build it on most mobile devices as well, and that is from what we can understand, hasn't been their focus, at least at Google, to provide sort of an easy way for developers to add WebRTC into native clients. Their focus seems to be a lot on getting the good support in Chrome and other browsers primarily. So that's I think that's where we have something to offer, and I think that's where also from our point of view, that's why we started developing this framework basically, because we thought that mobile will be super important and increasingly important as sort of a platform for real-time communication in the future, and that's where we will continue to focus on the mobile aspects.
Yeah, I guess that would be the obvious niche when I think about it.
It is.
I remembered my amazing question, which is
wonderfully
geeky and not probably interesting to anybody other than me, but I'll go for it anyway. What echo cancellation are you using?
Rob, do you want to answer that? Or?
Yeah, so right now I don't think there's any echo cancellation enabled, but there are APIs on OS X and iOS and Android. And there is something in Linux that we have played about with internally. Basically there are echo cancellation modules available on all the platforms that we support. Currently we don't have any echo cancellation, but it's something that we're obviously very interested in getting implemented and working.
Yeah, I mean, Core Audio does a great job on iOS and OS X. But I guess it's Android where it's a lot more of a crapshoot on if you're going to get any hardware noise reduction or echo cancellation. And I mean, on the media stack that we've built in-house on our commercial side of things, because we've got a WebRTC compatible stack, which we may or may not be able to open source someday. We started off with Speaks for echo cancellation, like pretty much everybody out there, which is terribly dubious quality nowadays. But ended up ironically switching over to the Google WebRTC Echo Can codebase, which the team there seem to have put a lot of work into, and it seems to have been rewritten several times in the last 6 months or so, and it's really very good. But I guess it's an amusing philosophical problem for you guys.
I wouldn't. I mean, the reason for not using the Google code base for primarily is that we obviously was choose another track with GStreamer, but there's the reason why we don't want to use it is we want to make sure that the implementations are truly interoperable or independent in terms of the WebRTC stuff. But such things as echo cancellation is not really something that's defined by the standard. So that would make it less of a sort of a problem for us to sort of take that piece of software and integrate it into our platform if we want to. I mean, that's
yeah. I mean, I think that would be pretty much your only pragmatic solution, because the Speak stuff is ancient, and as far as I know, the WebRTC one is the only good open source solution, I should say. The WebRTC.org one
Exactly.
is the only
Thank
good.
you. Thank you for clarifying that, Matthew.
The only good implementation out there. But of course, as you say, the operating system and the hardware is getting along quite well now, and in a iOS and Apple community, thankfully, they have some really good audio engineers. I just wish that some Android had the same.
All right.
So it's very
dependent
on Android. I think I've been discussing it with someone, and they suggested that the APIs are okay for doing it, but it's very hit and miss whether echo cancellation is even supported in the API.
Yes, so you've obviously got the Java audio layer, and you've also got the OpenSL libraries in there. And on OpenSL, at least it's all a native code path, it's all C++, and it's relatively low latency. And yep, there is, I think, an API that is defined there to request the hardware echo can. But it's a complete random chance as to whether your random device on that particular firmware, on that particular model, is actually going to have it right, and it is a constant pain. It's taken years of our lives developing Android audio stacks in terms of selecting between the different microphones. You end up finding that you're capturing out of the noise cancellation microphone rather than the hands-free one versus the actual microphone one. Not to mention getting the echo can. It's a world of pain. Someday it might be fixed, but the fragmented nature of Android is such that you often don't get there in the end.
You said the F word, fragmentation.
Yes.
Okay, this is probably a good time. We're not in a hurry or anything, but this is probably a good time to find out if there are any other questions. We're looking at, those of you in the Hangout, you're seeing YouTube and how far it's about a minute behind. It's kind of funny. Questions in ZipDX or VUC.audio or the IRC. I'm looking there to see if there are any. There's talk, but no questions. Oh, and somebody just took a big screenshot. Okay, anybody? Questions? Isn't that funny to see the not synced live audio video?
Robert McQueen, isn't that your old friend, Robert?
Yep. Oh yeah, it's Robert McQueen of Collabora.
Correct.
Rob is actually has been working for Collabora before starting at Ericsson Research.
I came from open source.
So, as I was saying, if there are no questions, let me get this happening here. Okay. This has been a great pleasure, and we're certainly would be happy to welcome you back anytime. Appreciate it. Thank you, Matthew, by the way, for suggesting this. This was an excellent suggestion, and I hope everybody got their money's worth since it's free.
Yeah, I also want to thank Matthew. I mean, he was the one in Paris, and during the short minutes that we talked, he actually mentioned this VoIP user conference as something that we need. This is something you need to do. It's great. So I asked him to help set it up, and he did. So I'm thankful for that.
Okay, well, thanks everyone.
Thanks everybody for doing it. Thanks to all the community. We have a terrific community here. There are many hundreds of people who are really the bleeding edge and making things move along, like everyone here right now, except Andy, because he's just kind of looking nice and enjoying himself, but he's not actually doing anything. Thank you, everybody. We'll take it out with this little piece of music that thanks our sponsors, and everyone here tonight is again invited back when you're ready, anytime. You can look to vuc.me/topics and choose a date from there, and that goes for anyone who has never been as well. Also, last word, coming to your world, May 27th, May 30th in Berlin. If anybody's going there, many of us will be there, so we'll look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye. Hey, that was the bleeding edge of the IP communications and VoIP community. We're at vuc.me on the web. Thanks to Simwood.com, who can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our host at PBX is provided by onsip.com. The site at vuc.me is on bluehost.com. We use zipdx.com for our wideband, full-featured conference bridge. And our local rate dial-ins are from voxbone.com. Every Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. See you next week.